Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Every large business started small, and sometimes we forget this. So it is important that we understand how to maximize our potential and overcome challenges when dealing with larger customers. Today, my co-host, CEO of Pierlite, Arianto, and I are fortunate to chat to our guest speaker, Mimmo Lubrano, CEO of Sandhurst Fine Foods. Mimmo has extensive experience working for more than 30 years in the food industry. He is an expert in food marketing, purchasing, branding, and distribution. Mimmo is here today to help us understand how to deal with large customers and explain how we can all be excellent leaders by focusing on humility and persistence. Welcome to the show, Mimmo.
Thank you very much, Natalie and Gus. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
And thank you for donating your time for Leader Talk, Mimmo. I know you're busy, and your insights will be important to all of us.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Mimmo. And we begin each Leader Talk episode with two fun questions that we ask our guests, and we have yours. The first one we'd love to ask you is, where will we find you when you're not at work?
Okay, that's a pretty easy one. Everyone probably knows this. I love my music. I've been a musician. My music came before Sandhurst, so I've been a bass player and a singer since I was 15, and I still haven't got it right. I just love music, and I love playing bass and playing music, and so I've got a couple of bands. I'm in a Doobies Eagles cover band as well as a 90s cover band as well, and I just love the fact that music is an area which you can never stop learning in music, which is a great experience. And music is just an incredible medium for which you can communicate with people, so it's makes you feel good, and it's a great experience. So, and of course my family is also very important to me as well, so I've got a lovely wife and two beautiful daughters which occupy my time as well, so that's good. And they take me to the great restaurants as well. So yeah, that's food and music. That's it. That's all there is. Only two parts to me. That's all. Yeah.
Oh, how great is that? Well, in speaking on the food side of things, love to know, working at Sandhurst, CEO of Sandhurst Fine Foods, what is your actual favorite food?
It's funny, I thought about this one, and it actually changed. It changed yesterday. I realised that yesterday I had to have a new favourite food. It used to be Neapolitan genuine pizza margherita, which was always my favourite, but I realised that I'm going to have to go to Naples to eat it, and I can't get it, and there's no way I can actually get a pizza like a Naples pizza in Australia. Get close. Even the Neapolitan coffee, I can't really get one of those. So my father was, because my father's 90, he's got a little garden on the side of the business, and he grows what he call a Lombardy pepper. It's a long green chili, Lombardy chili, and he fries them up with a bit of salt, and they are just amazing. There's green and red ones, and the red ones are sweet, and the green ones are a little bit more, a little bit more bitey. So you fry these peppers up, and it just takes you to another world. It takes you to another experience. Reminds you of when you were a kid and you used to have a bread roll with like a chicken cutlet or a veal cutlet, and you used to put these peppers on, and all the oil used to sink inside the bread, and then you used to eat the bread. It was all covered in oil and stuff. And that I realised yesterday that's my favourite. So I've got a new favourite food. Thanks to you guys. So thanks very much for giving me new favourite food. So fried Lombardy peppers. Now I've got to try and make money out of it.
Today, we are representing kebab shop again because Mimmo make me hungry.
Oh, I knew this would be the case. I've eaten before this talk show.
Listening to Mimmo, I'm hungry.
These things will change your life, I guarantee you. I guarantee you eat some of these Lombardy peppers fried with salt, they will change your life, 100%.
I know the peppers you're referring to, and it's just fried on shallow fried olive oil with, did you say cracked salt on it?
Cracked salt, yeah, that's all. It's a long, slow fry, right, with salt, and you've got to make sure you get a little bit of burn on the skins, right? Once you get the burn on the skins, you get the caramelization. It's unbelievable. There's no garlic, nothing else, just salt and really good olive oil. That's the thing. Get a really good olive oil, right? Which I sell, by the way. So it's a really great product, and you know what? It's vegetarian, it's vegan, it ticks all the boxes, and it just tastes amazing. And it reminds you. Actually, I've got an Italian lady at work, and she goes, "That reminds me of when I was a kid and when I was at my nonna's house." I went, "There you go. I've done my job. Thank you very much." So that's what food's supposed to do. It's supposed to take you on a journey.
I have noted. I will try. I'll get back to you and let you know what I think.
Well done.
Thank you. And Mimmo, before we move on to the questions, we're hoping you can tell us a bit more about yourself, a bit more about the business to help us understand who you are and also about Sandhurst Fine Foods.
So Sandhurst Fine Foods started when I was a kid. When I was in my I was like 5 or 6 years old. Dad had a factory in Macquarie Fields called Sandhurst Farms, and my brother and I used to get shoved in the car on a Saturday, and instead of going to sport, we went to the factory, to this smelly olive factory in Macquarie Fields called Sandhurst Farms. And of course, all I wanted to do was avoid work, so I used to find ways to avoid work. And my brother Ray used to actually go and work, and nothing's changed really. I still avoid work as much as possible, and Ray's actually the worker. So you always need two partners that have complementary styles, and my brother and I are incredibly complementary. He's everything I'm not. Thank God for that, because two of me would be an absolute nightmare. Ray's very much operations. He's very serious. He's got a great sense of humour, but he doesn't act the clown like I do. So at Sandhurst Farms, Ray used to get into production, and I used to run around the office and try and avoid work. And then they used to do things like olive, sauerkraut. They didn't do any sun-dried tomatoes. They did some horseradish and stuff like that, and it was in Macquarie Fields. Dad sold the business in 75 to a company called 3 Threes, which is still a family business, a 100-year-old family business, and they're a fantastic business as well. They're our competitors, but we respect them very, very much. And so Dad had an absence of the pickle industry for up to about, I think, from 75 to 88. So it's a good 15, 20 years. During that time, my father then ventured into a lot of different businesses. And we could see my father sort of, struggling in some businesses where it wasn't food. And even in food, he would do okay. But we said, listen, why don't you just stick with something and be consistent? Because you're pretty good with this, but you don't have any patience, It's funny, I should say that, because I have no patience either. So we had more patience when we were younger. And so we said, my father said, and so he had a contract doing frozen seafood repacking. He nearly went to the wall before that by buying machinery and capitalising. So we went through a whole period. I think that's an important part of the development, is that if you've been close to the wall, if you've been close to bankruptcy, if you've had the people walking into your house and assessing your house, and you remember that day very clearly where someone says, listen, we want to value your house because we may need to sell it on you. That's something which I remember actually happening, and that probably happened before I even joined Sandhurst, and that was when he had a loan out, and that loan was doubled in size because of the flooding of the Australian dollar in 87, 88, or just before 87 actually. So yeah, so then we said, why don't you start up in a small way, just doing the olive thing on the side, because he was doing some frozen food repacking. And I was working at Philips Components, so I've got a background in electronic sales and marketing. I used to be a product manager for semiconductors for Philips, a great company and a great learning curve. And so he brought me in to run the business, or to run the sales and marketing side. And I asked that famous question. And of course, can you guess what the question I asked? What's the first question I asked when my father asked me to join? What would be that question? Gus, you can answer that.
Do you like food? No.
How much are you paying me?
Brilliant, 100%. Right? What are you going to pay me? What's in it for me? Right? And his answer was amazing. I still remember. He says, "Listen, you didn't get nothing." I went, "Well, listen, mate. I'm pulling out some serious dollars here at Philips. You got to bring me over." He said, "Listen, there'll be no money, but if we make something, we get to share in the profits. So I'm sort of going, so you want a sweat equity partner? So I became a sweat equity. My brother would never say that. He would never question it. He'd go, yeah, whatever you want, Dad. But I'd sort of go, no. I've got to get something out of this, So and so then we decided, and he goes, listen, all you need to do is focus on sales and marketing, because your brother and I will do all the manufacturing. We'll make sure the stuff goes into jars. We'll bottle. We'll get all the raw materials, and we'll do everything. The only thing we didn't have was money, right? Which was a big hole. So I remember the bank. Once again, the bank comes in and goes, "You've run out of money. What are you going to do?" I said, "Listen, I've got contracts with Franklin's. I've got supermarkets," and they said, "Well, we're going to foreclose on you." I said, "Oh, okay. So I've got this business. I've got customers. I've got everything. I've got a recipe, and you guys just want the money." And they said, "Yeah, unless you get your money by next week, then we're going to close you down." And so then that was very close. So we were very close to the wall, even with Sandhurst when we were growing. And once again, I realised now what we're doing. Our cash flow was actually, we're running out of cash. That's what was happening, because we were buying product, selling product, but then we had to throw it back into buying to get more product so that we could then fuel the growth. So, and that was in 1991 when I joined. So by 1992 it was pretty tight. Didn't take any wages. And Mum came in and she'd work on the production line as well. So it'd be four of us up until 9 o'clock. And I remember saying to my dad, "What are we going to do?" He goes, "Just keep on going, because failure wasn't an option." We knew that there was failure. We knew that he'd failed in a few businesses or not went close, but we just said we can't fail at this. We've just got to keep going. And that we did. We just kept on going and just did believe that we would eventually succeed. But my father always said to me, he said, you just keep doing it. Eventually they'll all buy from you. And I don't know what he was thinking. I think he might have just been motivating me. He just said, listen, you just keep on calling on customers. Eventually every single customer will come to you because eventually you'll have something that they want. And I went, okay, I'll just keep on going because at the moment I just feel like, giving it up and going back to Philips, So, yeah. So that was the beginnings of the business. Yeah, go on.
Sorry to cut you off there. One thing that you say interests me because Natalie and I representing small business, and so people will look at you today because you are who you are today, CEO of a national company, Sandhursts Fine Foods. It's everywhere in the major stores. But at one point, not only you have no money as a business, your mom worked on the production line. You are moving from literally one of the largest company in the world to work with your dad, not knowing whether the money will continue. This is really relevant for all of us in the small and medium business because every day we hoping that we will become national companies, yet we are small and we still have to work in the production line. Can you bring us back to that time?
Okay,
and
so
what do you say to yourself to be able to sustain that, dream to become big?
Okay, so you've got no money, so you can't afford to get a delivery driver. So you put 5 boxes of olives in the back of your car and you drive them to your customer, right? You'd buy a van, which I did, and my first company car was a van, and I had it until 2000. So I was driving the company van until 2000. Funny because I used to have to pick up international guests, and I used to lie and say, listen, my company car is in the repair shop at the moment, so I've had to borrow one of the workers' vans, because you were ashamed to actually pick some up in a work van, which stunk of olives, by the way. I quite like the smell, but anyway. And so what happens was you then realize that if you don't make it happen and deliver those olives yourself and do those small deliveries yourself, then you won't have, because you can't afford to have a driver. And you would never ask someone to do something you didn't do yourself. So you've then got to believe that you can be a rep and a salesperson and a delivery driver at the same time. But knowing that one day you won't have to deliver that stock yourself, it keeps you going. So you know that there will be a time when the next hire you will make will be a delivery driver, right? Or a transport company which will take your product from A to B. So that's probably what keeps you going. Knowing that the easiest thing to replace is probably the delivery, and your customers help you as well. One of my big customers, who's no longer with us, a guy called Sam Choker, who ran a business called Dawson and Dyer, he said, listen, you better get someone to do deliveries because only you can sell, and the owner of the business is the best person to sell the business. And the other thing that I learned very early on was that if I wanted to sell, I have to learn selling. So I had a degree in marketing, and so every marketing graduate that comes out of university believes that selling is done by somebody else. So I said, well, I'm not a salesperson. I'm a marketer. I'm a marketing graduate. So we don't get involved in things like selling. Wrong answer. You need to learn how to sell. So then I realized I had to find how to sell. So I went to the real estate guys. And there's a guy called Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, and they had tapes at the time. And I remember taking my brother to some of these seminars and listening to these guys and buying 1,000. See, we didn't have the money to spend on anything, but we spent $1,000 on tapes. So that's interesting, isn't it? So it's amazing what's value, because you couldn't afford a $1,000 car or anything, but $1,000 on tapes you could afford because that was your education. You never thought twice about it. So when it comes to self-education, money's no object, within reason, of course, So that's another thing that we tried to do. My brother and I, because we both had a good education. Fortunately, our parents gave us the most amazing opportunity to be. My brother's a qualified lawyer and an accountant as well, and he's never really practiced law or accounting, and I don't think he really wants to either. So, but yeah, we're both very blessed in the fact that we were allowed to go to university, and it's one of the best things that we probably had as a background. And our parents allowed us to do what we had to do. So we're very, very lucky in that respect. So yeah, bit of luck. Yeah.
What an incredible story. And Mimmo, coming from, starting off so small, because I feel like people forget that businesses start small. They see you who you are today, yet look at this incredible story and, the challenges and the persistence and everything that came about. How many, you said it's nationwide, how many Sandhurst, you're across Australia, correct?
We're actually international. You'll find Sandhurst products on shelves in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in Malaysia, very big in Malaysia. We're pretty big in New Zealand now. We used to dominate Fiji. We're back in Fiji now. We're actually in PNG. There's pretty much Southeast Asia is pretty much covered with Sandhurst. both in food service, mostly in food service, but a lot in retail as well. So we're very fortunate that we built a great little export business on the side, which is about 5 to 8% of our turnover, depending on what's going on. But yeah, it's very, very lucky that we've got that international. And Australia-wide, we've got a branch in Perth, one in Victoria, one in Queensland. So I've got four warehouses across Australia, head offices in Miranda, in the Shire, in Sydney. So yeah, we're very fortunate. Yeah. So,
what a brilliant story. And you've got more employees, obviously, now. So
75 employees. Yep. Yep. That's what we've got. Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah. And a lot of them have been with us for 30 years. So that's another great story. We've also got a lot of help from a mob called FBA, Family Business Australia. So anybody that's in a small or medium business should actually look up FBA. Not that I get any money out of FBA, but FBA is a great network. And what you learn from FBA is what you're going through as a family business is not unique. You're dealing with your brother, your mother, your uncle, or your son, or your cousin. And a lot of FBA members have been through that, and they've got no vested interest in trying to be in your pocket to actually glean some money out of you to give you advice. And that's the best consultants you can ever afford, are the ones that are free and the ones that don't really care about how much money you've got or what they can get out of it. So as a family business, because you are a family business, you genuinely should want to help people, and your legacy is that you should want to help other family businesses. And that's why it's very important to give back via FBA New South Wales, FBA Australia, which is a great organisation of like-minded. And there's companies in there you would think of, like Kennards and Bundaberg soft drinks and Cooper's beer, and it's amazing. They're just great stories of business owners that are just like us, as but they're just like. I mean, they're custodians of their brands because they've had so many generations. So if you want to learn how to make your brand or your family last for generations, talk to the FBA guys, because they'll tell you. And it's just amazing how the networking just gets you into so many different people's ears. It's great. It's amazing. So, yeah.
And that was FBA.
FBA, yeah. Family Business Australia. It's been around for many years. They're a great bunch of people, and they're really lovely to talk to. And they've also got helpers in there that for some money will actually help you with consulting. They have to be FBA accredited, which means they have to understand a family business, because a family business is a very different beast to a corporate, and consultants for corporates are one breed, and FBA consultants are different. So we work with an FBA consultant and coach, and he's been with us for well over 12, 13 years. He's great. So, yeah.
Excellent. Mimmo, you mentioned persistence. Well, you displayed persistence with that story, and I want to touch on persistence because it's something you really believe in. All businesses face challenges, and it seems like persistence is a key requirement of all leaders today.
Yeah.
How can we all learn to be more persistent in business? Is it something that can be taught? Is it something we can learn?
You have to have the passion. Your passion will drive your persistence, because without your passion, you won't be able to do anything. If you genuinely love your industry, I genuinely love. I love olives. I'll just go through and eat them off the line. I love them more than other products that we make. We make a lot of great products, beautiful sun-dried tomatoes, and I'll have those. The peppers were great. I'll talk about the peppers till the cows come home. And we do char-grilled capsicums or char-grilled peppers, which are beautiful as well. So that passion for me comes from that love of food and seeing what that food can do for people. But I think without the passion, you've got to find something you really, really love. And I remember being a kid, and I was actually in love with a box of Cocoa Pops, believe it or not. And I still love Cocoa Pops. I think they're an amazing food. And I said, I want to work for a company that sells Cocoa Pops. Dad then had a wholesaler in Marrickville called Lubrano Food Wholesalers. And I used to watch these guys walk in, and they were called commercial travelers, right? Now, for people as old as me, a commercial traveler is called a sales rep or a sales executive, or what are they called these days? A BDM, Yeah. And I said, Dad, that's what I want to be. I want to be a commercial traveler. And he said, you could be one of those, but you're destined for something greater than a commercial traveler. I said, well, what a great job. I get to drive around in a car, which they provide me with, and I get to BS all day. And that's what I do really, really well, And he goes, but you could actually do better. And I said, okay, well, I really like that. But when we had and I remember the chocolate reps to come in and go, oh, great, the chocolate reps here. That way you eat chocolates, And so you used to see the reps from all the companies. And that's where I developed my passion for food, I think. And that fueled my persistence, because I thought I need to. And the best one was when I went to, I think it was 7-Eleven. They go, I only take market leaders. Can you come back when you're a market leader? Right? Okay, I'm going to see you in about 15 years, but don't go away. I'll be there in 15 years, And in 15 years, become a market leader. So I think that was a really good example. It's like, how do I become a market leader? And that restlessness was important. That's why we're in retail. We're a firm number 2, and I love being number 2 in retail, So I don't want to be number one in retail. I like to be number two, and number one is a great brand which we compete with. But I think that also fuels me as well to stay at number two. That's great motivation. I want to stay at number two in retail, you know. So and there's various reasons for that as well. We can go into that later as well. So yeah, I think the persistence is passion driven. In my case, in other people's cases, it might be different. I don't know. I just can't think of anything else that drives me, that gets me up in the morning. And you know, the thrill of going to an overseas factory that makes olives, and I remember the exhilaration, the thrill when I'm in someone else's factory, you know, and I'm smelling it and feeling it and seeing all the product. Or you're going out to the farms and you're seeing olive producers. And I should discuss the peppers today with the farmer. I'm sort of going, so let me know when you're picking them and how do you pick them and what are the seasons. I actually get a real buzz out of talking to farmers. So I think that's the passion there that drives my curiosity, because I want to learn stuff, you know. So yeah, that's for me. That's what it is.
Mimmo, I have a question for you related to what Natalie asked. How do you learn to be persist? How do you, create persistence? And your response was passion make me persist. Now, when I hear the way you even talk about olives, I mean, olives, I love olives too. But when you talk about olives, you make me want to eat olives right now, not eating kebabs. I want to eat olives with bread instead of kebabs. But what I want to ask you is this. Passion can be contagious, but can be retained by someone else that is not equally passionate towards a particular thing. Now, you are a national company. Olives is your passion. I just pick one out of many of your products. Olives is one of your passion. How do you transform that passion of olives to 75 of your employees to be able to talk about olives the way you talk about olives? Because when you talk about olives, it feels like it's really like you don't have to sell it. Like, we want to eat olives.
I think you've got to then involve them in the process. I think the more you involve your staff in the process, and I mean, I don't believe you should hide anything from your staff. Your staff has got to be, there's no point to find it anyway. If you involve them in every step of the process, everything that we do is transparent. I've got accountants here that know more about olives than most people on the street. So my accountants are olive experts. I'm actually organising a tasting panel next week, and I've got the accounting team in there because I need their palates. Why? Because they've been here for 30 years. Not because they're olive experts, because they've been here for 30 years. I think the more you get them involved in every facet of the business, now it's really hard to get a production worker involved in the accounting team, right? But then how do you get a production worker more instilled and more involved? You basically treat them as part of your family, and you take an interest in them, and you probably explain to them why you're doing it. You can communicate with them, but I think if you show them, we did a lot of work on, quarterly or monthly barbecues. We used to have a monthly barbecue, and everyone would get under one roof, and, here's the barbecue, and here's, a free, lunch on Sandhurst, and make a bit of a statement. We didn't realise we were actually building a really solid team there. I think that's how you get people involved. If they know they're part of the family and they really matter, I think they'll be more likely to buy into your story. Everyone wants to be on a train that's going somewhere. If you tell them where the train's going, they're more likely to stick around. And they're less likely to believe the stuff that some co-worker told them about, oh, mate, these guys are hopeless, and, they haven't fixed the toilets yet, and whatever, which is the stuff that gets in the way. And by the way, if you tell, I'll fix the toilets if you just tell me, but you haven't told me, so I don't know they're broken, that's an example. Actually really happened about 15 years ago, We added the employee survey that the toilets are broken. Well, you didn't tell me. I said, we'll fix them, no problem, I'll fix them, no worries. So yeah, I think that's part of it. Look, I could spend hours answering that question. I reckon I probably don't even know the answer myself. Yes, but it is what it is, I suppose.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And just humility, that's another quality that I just wanted to touch on as well, because it's something that you mentioned, persistence and humility. Why do you think it's especially, we know it's important, but why so important, especially in today's world?
I'm 2 generations away from farmer fishermen. That's what I was, or that's what we were. One of my grandfathers was a fisherman, the other one was a farmer. Both business people, both working for themselves. I know, Natalie, your story is very similar. And Gus, I can bet my bottom dollar that your grandparent or great-grandparent was a farmer or a fisherman, right? Once you realise where you come from, you realise that it's important. The older you get, the more you realise that you're carrying something from many generations ago, and you're the custodian of something which happened. humility was a very important thing. My mother's 84. She had a stroke about 3 years ago. She's not been the same since, but she was she's in here today, actually. Mum's in today, which is fantastic to see her, wearing the mask. And, and she says, keep your feet on the ground, She also said, this money stuff is evil, and it will cause all these problems in the family, I said, yeah, but try living without it, and I said, the feet on the ground is an Italian saying, keep your feet on the ground. That's a very important Italian saying. And what it means is, an Italian family, you've got to basically realize where you come from. You can't really let the stuff get to your head. It's important, but it's not the solution. It won't solve all your problems. And so the whole thing, don't let money get in the way, and don't start believing, your own BS, because it can really drive you crazy. Humility is a big part of being Italian, and understating what you've achieved, and not being the guy that, look, I did it. And people say, oh, you've done it. People say, oh, success couldn't have been without you. I said, listen, I had a very supportive brother, and I had two parents that allowed me to do exactly what I wanted to do, and they allowed me to make a lot of mistakes. And I made a lot of mistakes, cost the company a lot of money. And you know what? Costing us all the money, luckily we got most of them right. You don't need to get more than 50% right, you're still ahead of the game. And the mistakes we made, I'm glad to say that we did learn from. But the humility part of it is really important. And my daughters generally keep me grounded as well, because they tell me, you're an arrogant so-and-so, and you've got that air about you. And I go, okay, I didn't think I did, but maybe I do, And, it's funny, because I'm doing a leadership course at the moment with a new mentor, and I had to do a SWOT analysis on my weaknesses. And boy, did my wife and daughters tear me to shreds the other night, which is great. So, and I'm trying to address those as well. I don't know how I'll go, but anyway, it's something you've really got to know. Go try and know yourself, and the other thing is knowing yourself. You know your weaknesses. If you know your weaknesses, you can hide your weaknesses. That's the beautiful thing about having a business which is a bit bigger than the most. Once you realize you don't want to be the guy doing deliveries, you can hire the delivery person, and someone can do that for you, and you can pay them, and you'll be a lot happier, and you'll be able to sell more, because that's what you want to do. So, yeah, that's the
and Mimmo, when we talk about humility, it's such a simple word, because it's mentioned a lot. People hear about this. What are the characteristics of humility in business? Like, what is, if you look not a person but a business? We are a small business, Natalie and I. Today we decided back to own a kebab shop. We have a small kebab shop here.
I think
there's a lot of things to learn.
I think Gustav, I think honesty is a big thing. You got to be honest. If you're a kebab shop and you're Indonesian running a kebab shop, you've got to be honest and say, listen, I'm not Lebanese. I'm an Indonesian running a kebab shop, so I'm not going to give you a Lebanese, but I'm going to give you an Indonesian-inspired one with a bit of sriracha sauce. And I'm going to be able to do this in a way. So, because there's no point you trying to call yourself Muhammad or Ahmed, because you're not. So I think you've got to be honest about who you are and what you want to be. And that's the humility in a business. And I think a business it's got to know what it can do, what it can't do. There's no point trying to be someone else. There's no point in business. Businesses are like people. Everyone else is taken, so be yourself. A business has got its own DNA. Our business has got a bit of me in it, but it's not all just me. It's got its own personality, and it works when we know things are working well. But when it doesn't work, we've got a few of our basic principles wrong or mixed up. Or we've got the wrong people pushing the wrong buttons at the moment.
Yeah.
In some areas, that's when we made an incorrect hire and a non-value based hire, and we've done that before. We've had hires that didn't work, and we had hires that started good and then ended up going, a bit pear-shaped, which is fine, because they had a turn in their life, or an incident in their life, or they developed some new skill, or they wanted to test themselves. I've created a couple of businesses out of this, a couple of consultants that come out of our business, and that's fantastic, because they've left us to create their own other businesses in consulting. So they've taken what they've learned here, because we've given them so much autonomy and so much freedom, and they've gone and become consultants, and very good ones at that. So we're very glad that we've created leaders that will help other businesses, which is terrific. I'm very proud of that too. So yeah.
And Mimmo, talking about making mistakes, there was something you shared on LinkedIn the other day, maybe it been yesterday, and it really resonated with me. It was McDonald's can mess up your order 1,000 times and you will still support them. Yet a small business owner makes one mistake and you bash them for eternity. I'm a small business owner, a real one, not even the kebab shop one, Gus, yes, but, I do own my own small business, and I do really struggle, kind of, you make a mistake and you need to move on.
Yeah,
so with it is quite hard as a small business owner. So what do you have? What advice do you have for those small or medium business owners out there that make those mistakes and struggle to move on?
I did say, Natalie, that's because consumers believe they've got leverage over a small business, because if I don't show up to my local cafe and, I tell enough people in my little suburb of the cafe that they're going to be really bad coffee, then I'm going to affect them. Whereas you've got no leverage over McDonald's. You've got no leverage. I've got no leverage over Woolworths. And I've said this before, Woolworths is a fantastic customer of ours. Coles is an amazing customer, very supportive of our brand. But I'll be honest, if they stop selling Sandhurst tomorrow, the share price wouldn't move one cent, and so you know that what you're doing doesn't affect a big company, so you accept the fact that if they get your order wrong, it's not going to make any difference. Whereas you think deep down that you might have some leverage over a small business, and that small business, then you also think that small business actually cares about what you think, and they take everything really seriously. So as a consumer, you think, well, if I put some bad posts on Facebook about this cafe or whatever, which is a terrible thing to do, then it'll get around and I'll teach them a lesson. It's like a restaurant that I remember, which was had renowned for bad service, and some person decided to copy a bad review and put on everyone's car or something, which is just childish and crazy. I mean, the guy knows he's running a bad restaurant. You don't need to remind him, and people make their own minds up. But the thing is, as a small business owner, you either get it or you don't. And if you beat yourself up about it, Scott Morrison was on the TV yesterday, and people were talking about his style and everything, and he goes, well, if I'm the Prime Minister, I can't get offended by that sort of stuff. And I think you've got to be a bit like that. You've got to be a bit like, okay, I can't beat myself up over my mistakes about bad reviews and customers getting upset, even though it does keep you up at night. I get one email from a customer saying your olives are too salty, I didn't like this, or this tastes like rubbish, and I got a pit in my olives, and you guys are the worst company in the world. I'm sort of going, okay, that's fine. I'll send you an explanation. And this really did happen recently. And well, that's not good enough. I want my money back. I said, well, okay, that's fine. I mean, I don't know if I'll give you money back, but people have just got a different view of the world. But you can't get caught up in that sort of stuff, because what about the 1 million customers that liked your product? They didn't bother telling you that, by the way. It's only the one that you pay attention to is the negative one, which you shouldn't be giving that any oxygen at all. That's my thoughts anyway. Yeah.
So, and I think come back also, whilst correct me if I'm wrong, Mimmo, back to the concept of humility. Yes, we need to move on. We need to persist, because you can't. If you wanna be national company like your business, then throughout the journey you get compliant, but you need to have the strength to accept feedback as well.
That's right, yeah, and feedback comes in different forms. I'll accept feedback from staff more than from customers, more than anything, and big customers, I'll always listen to them. If Woolworths and Coles tell me that I've got to do something different, then absolutely, because they're the ones that are calling the shots. And even if they do, which actually happens, they want to launch a product which I know will fail, and they want me to do it, I'll have to do it, but then I've got to try and mitigate my losses and go, well, okay, we tried this, but maybe something's going to come out of it. And sometimes they say, I think you'll fail, and it succeeds. So I don't know everything. Sometimes they've got some information that I don't have. And so a customer that tells you, the customer that complains is your friend. Don't forget that. That's an American retailer called Stu Leonard Stores, and he was the one that created this whole Big Fresh thing in Franklin's, I don't know, many years ago. And he said the customer that complains is your friend. And I love a customer that complains that really wants to give me constructive feedback, and they're the ones that I listen to. The ones that just want to be a bit of a keyboard warrior, a bit of a, that don't want to accept the story, a different story. But I think all criticism is valid. In music, we say never blame an audience, which is a very good concept as well. So you never blame your audience. You've got to look at yourself. But the numbers, have always got to look at the numbers. And we monitor complaints every month. We get probably, 4 or 5 complaints every month from food service or retail, and they're in various forms. Sometimes the product is damaged in transit. Sometimes they find bits of plastic in products. And then, by the way, if anyone in the food industry hasn't got any complaints about foreign matter in food, they're lying, because everyone has something every now and then. So nothing is 100% in food, nothing. So you might as well be honest and get it out front, So you do get problems, but once again, it's your ability to solve them and quickly, and the fact that you do care about that problem, which makes you able to go back to that customer and go, yes, we solved the problem, or we worked it together. Can we now rebuild? And because you think, they found a piece of plastic in some olives, I'll never buy it again. No. We had a look at the root cause. It might have been on the production line, might have been our supplier, find out corrective action, things like that, and then we move on. So that's important. So get timely response, always important. Yeah.
And thank you for being so honest, because then it makes us realize, okay, it's okay to make mistakes or have errors, so it's not something that people focus on, or, large companies would like to admit that they make errors, but like you said, everyone does it.
Everyone makes mistakes. You don't learn, and I call it when we lost lots and lots of money on bad debts. My parents were obviously distressed, or when you lose money doing a deal that is going to be not in your favour. I call that the lessons of life, and the cost of education. So if a customer goes belly up on you and costs you $50,000, you've just got a $50,000 university education which you just paid for. Provided you don't make the same mistake again. And I can tell you now, bad debts haven't gone away, but the biggest lesson I learned in bad debts is don't be friends with them, right? If you become friends with your customers and go out on yachts with them and go and socialise with them and things like that, then it's very hard for you to say when they're in financial trouble, yes, I want my money, because at the end of the day, their kids and you've been socialising, so you become too close. And I learned that from a customer who said, don't get too close. You got your friends, you got your business. The other one is in a family business, try not to employ family, right? I know it's a really sticky one. At one stage, we had 3 or 4 extended family members in the business. I'm talking cousins and uncles and aunties and whatever. And I don't want to sound like a bit of a smart ass, but you're better off not employing family and friends, because it probably doesn't work. It generally doesn't work out really well. Same as partners. Partners are always a hard one to work out. I mean, my partner is my brother, so blood's thicker than water. So I'm very fortunate. We've actually had to work out our own styles as well. So working with your own siblings, once again, Family Business Australia teaches you a lot about that as well, how to work with your brother. So which is not easy, particularly when you've got different styles and you've got to understand how you work together. So very grateful for that as well. So yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah.
And Mimmo, your business obviously started small. We mentioned that before. Now you're supplying to major food chains nationally. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
Can you share with us that moment? We're going to call it that moment before you actually decided that you're ready to scale up. So how do we, as we're small business owners, do we have some kind of light bulb moment that goes, okay, I'm ready to do this?
Maybe I want to add a little bit, Mimmo, because scale up required money.
Yeah.
So if we are like if tomorrow we want to serve 1,000 kebabs, someone have to pay the money to buy the meat initially. Now, how this the part that
1,000. So I guess 1,000 kebabs start with 10, right?
Yeah.
Don't go from 10 to 1,000. Go from 10 to 50. Go to 50 to 100, and that's the way you've got to do it. That's the key, is to scale, because you run out of cash. Because we ran out of cash. We starved the oxygen is cash. Cash is oxygen. And so if you go from 10 to 1,000, then you're gonna run out of oxygen and you'll suffocate, because the cash is the oxygen. So the moment that you can scale up, we were lucky that Woolworths had state-based offices, and we were also, but Coles didn't. Coles had a national buying office, and I remember walking into Coles and we didn't have a lot of money, but they did say you're gonna have to spend most of your new line fees will take up most of your first year income. And so you won't make any money for at least 12 months. Back then, it's changed now, which is much better. New line fees, thankfully, don't exist anymore, but they were quite prohibitive. And so then you had to then realise, if I'm going to lose money for a year, then I've got to be able to, number one, sustain that, but I've also got to have other parts of the business which will pay for it. So that's why we developed a very strong presence in catering and food service. Just to let you know, 70% of what we do is actually catering and food service. So 70% of what Sandhurst sells goes to restaurants, clubs, caterers, institutions, anywhere from the sumo salad chain, or to Soul Origin is a great partner of ours as well, or what we call the quick serve restaurant chains as well. So we don't do McDonald's or Subway or the big guys, because they want a different sort of product. We don't do that. But in the pizza chains, we did a fair bit with Crust as well. Crust is a big customer. And so when we realised that we had to fertilise retail with a bit of food service, then you had a good customer base in food service and keep the cash flow. Not allowing one customer to be any more than 10% of your business is a big lesson. Do not allow one customer, if it's Woolworths, Coles, Aldi, or a food service customer, either more than 10%. It's a big thing. And I still stand by that. If it's more than 10%, get them down to below 10%. Used to be 5%, but these days it's pretty hard to stop someone like Woolworths. Woolworths is about 10% of our business, which is nice. Coles is about the same. And so what we did was, Woolworths had a state office, and so we were allowed to launch in New South Wales alone on a trial. Actually, they've got a different system now. They've got little cluster stores, which has gone back. It's great. So you can be in 100 stores. and you can trial with 100 stores. They give a good case study of a bone broth company from Queensland that makes a nice little bone broth in a jar. It sells for about $20 or something, and it's in 100 stores in there trying to help them. And Coles has got a little nurture fund to try and help small manufacturers as well. So I just saw a little video on one of the biscuit manufacturers, and Curtis Stone was there with them, and they were scaling up. So I think you need to start small. And if I was really, okay, don't use kebabs. If I was using Sandhurst as an example, I would go out there and try and talk to maybe about 30 or 40 little shops, and I would put it into 30 or 40 little shops, little delicatessens or fruit markets, and I would do the demos there every Saturday, or go to the markets and do it every Saturday and learn what consumers want, because that's where you get a lot of insights. It's incredible when you go out and talk to customers how much information they'll give you. So every product idea is usually a customer frustration that hasn't been addressed. One of the most successful products we've launched in the last 5 years is called a sandwich stacker, which is a cucumber, which is a long cut cucumber, which came out of food service. So a rep in Newcastle, a guy called Jeff Ralston, who's a great guy, he's retired now, who's working for Big Foods Newcastle, and he said, your cucumbers, the round ones, the same ones that McDonald's sells. I said, yeah. He goes, why don't you make them shaped like surfboards? I went, what? He goes, the surfboard ones, so it looks like the burger shops made it themselves, which they haven't. I went, so you want a long cut cucumber, and I found them in India. They're called sandwich stackers, and we launched them in food service and in retail, and they're probably the most successful product in the category at the moment. It's a long cut pickled dill cucumber. Tastes like a bit like McDonald's ones. They're a little bit less sweet. They're a little bit more chunky. But the beautiful thing about these in retail is, here's a great concept for you, is they increase the AWOP, the average weight of purchase, which means that in the retail context, you're going to go through a jar of those much quicker than you will the other ones, the ones that are in the bread and butter ones in the ring. So you might go through this in 3 weeks, whereas the other ones you get through it in 6 weeks. You come back for more, and there you go. Retailer happy, Mimmos happy, Sandhursts are happy, category grows, and we're all happy. So AWOP is a great concept as well. What a great idea. So yeah, that came out of a customer, a crazy guy from Newcastle that said, why don't you make them long cut? I went, okay, well, let's try it, and the rest is history. So yeah, mind you, for every sandwich stacker, there's about 20 flops. So I mean, I can tell you about the flops as well. So yeah, but the flops cost us money and time and everything. But we had a lot of fun doing it along the way. So yeah, that's the story. So
I'm laughing because I've seen it on the shelves, and being Croatian, we love our pickles.
Yeah.
And all the sliced ones. And I thought, what would I be using that one for? Now I know. Sandwich stack.
Sandwich stackers was a burger thing. It's how to emulate that great classic burger at home that you've had in the pub or the restaurant. And believe me, the burger craze is still going. It's because the pubs and clubs can use burgers to differentiate their menus. And steak prices or protein prices are very, very high at the moment. Both seafood, meat, extremely high at the moment. So putting a piece of steak on a plate in a pub or restaurant is becoming incredibly very expensive. So as a consumer, if you don't want to pay $50 for a steak, which a lot of people don't, then you're going to get a fairly poor quality or a very small one. So then you will push you to buy a burger, which is probably where we'll make a bit more money, differentiate our product, and have a bit of fun along the way. With those nice little chips in the basket and things like that as well. So yeah. So that's food service for you. That's where the passion comes from. Food service, by the way. Food service is where you get all your fun. That's where all the fun concepts start, in cafes and things like that. Which a lot of food service people end up in cafes because it's a lot more fun, a lot less serious as well. So but that's where it comes from. So yeah.
And when dealing with these larger customers, Mimmo, how do we actually upskill ourselves or even our teams to deal with them? Obviously, I'm assuming it'd be different dealing with Woolworths versus a small owned deli by a family, family company.
And to really understand the company you're selling to, I mean, one of the biggest mistakes we made was to assume the buyer, is going to get excited over char-grilled mushrooms, which we all launched and didn't work. I'm talking 20 years ago, char-grilled mushrooms, fantastic product, beautiful product, Australian made, amazing char-grilled mushrooms. What a beautiful product. Just can't make any money on them, that's all. Because mushrooms are mostly water, and you lose a lot of water when you char-grill them. And we don't want to use Chinese mushrooms like everyone else does, and just put them on a barbecue and make it look like they're char-grilled. I'm sharing the tricks of the trade now. So what happens is, we took the char-grilled mushrooms to Woolworths and go, these are fantastic. And the buyer goes, well, at whatever it is, $5 a jar, they're not going to sell. And if they do sell, then you're going to have to sell, thousands and thousands of them a week. And I don't think the customer's there that's going to buy them. And all I'm judged on is how well I sell and how much margin I make for Woolworths, because the share prices. And what Woolworths used to do very, very cleverly, and I used to admire this, we used to have a big sign on there for you. Today's share price is $24.62. Tomorrow's share price is up to you, right? And that was directed at vendors as well as staff. because don't forget, staff used to walk through the foyer. So every vendor and every staff member used to know the message was, today's share price is $24.67, tomorrow's share price is up to you. Now, I think the share price is, I don't know, 30 plus now. So that was a great message for vendors and staff, because we can all affect the share price, but that's the way they think. So you've got to understand that share price is depending on margin. They've got to make margin. They've got to run a business. And I don't begrudge them for making a margin on my product, because they've got a massive overhead scale. Understanding they've got a massive overhead scale. So don't get upset if they're making, 3 times what you're making, because they've got a much more complicated business than yours. And unless you really want to open up at midnight in Crow's Nest, because that's not what they're doing for you, then be happy with what they're going to give you. And if you can't make any money, then think about doing something else, So really understand who they are, but also understand their structure. There's no point trying to bat them over the head with, my nonna makes the best pasta sauce, and, you've got to buy it because my nonna's got the best recipe, and, my family loves it. Who cares? If it's good enough and it's well priced enough, it's going to sell. I mean, we have this is a bit of an emotional one on Australian made. We've launched a lot of Australian made product, and we've had more deleted than it's there. We've only got one Australian made product on shelf now, which is Australian pita calamari, only in one retailer. And that's because the price points were too high for what people wanted. People didn't want an Australian semi-dried tomato, chagri capsicum. Look, it was as good as the import, but it was $2 more on shelf. And you've got to respect that. You've got to say, listen, $2 is a lot of money. That's a coffee or half a coffee for someone. And they just don't value that enough, So it's nice to talk by Australian, but when it comes to the dollars and people are on limited budgets, you've got to then allow them to work within their budgets, So it is reality, and I can't, bloody retailer won't rage about Australia. They don't support Australian made. They'll support what actually sells, and that keeps families employed as well. So don't bash your customers either. As much as we like to bash our customers, you should never bash your customers. Never. Yeah. So So that's what I think. If you're dealing with the big guys, understanding your customers. With food service, used to understand them as well. I mean, food service customers. I said this the other day. Understand who they are, their family dynamics. They might be having some issues at home, and they might be having some power plays or something. So understand where that family business is going and where they come from. You've got more information now than you've ever had. So understand who you're dealing with. And try and find a bit about them. If they like the Roosters, then, say, discuss the Roosters, I'm not a football head, but I can, probably talk about the Roosters if you want. But, yeah, it's something that you need to understand your customers. And, there's no point talking about the Roosters to Woolworths, because they don't really, you've got to talk to buyers about what metrics. What are they KPI'd on? That's a really big thing. What is their KPIs? Are you KPI'd on my service levels to you? In other words, am I delivering in full on time, my DIFOT? Or are you KPI'd on the margin? Or are you KPI'd on the number of promotions that you put at the last minute? Because that was a KPI as well. So if you're putting through late promotions, it causes a ripple effect in the organisation in Woolworths, because what people are having to do is having to put your promotional tickets up outside of the scheduled time frame. So it's costing your customer money. So that means you make sure that buyer, you get all your promotions in early and you don't change your mind. So that's a big thing. So particularly when suppliers are absolutely, disrupted as they are now. It's a terrible time for supply at the moment. A lot of supply issues at the moment. So yeah. But anyway. Yeah.
And I like what you say, Mimmo, because understanding customer is also become a mirror to our foundation. So for example, you can have the best products, the best food, you can have the best productions, you can have the best labeling, the best salespeople, the best everything ready. Your buyer KPI is DIFOT, and you don't have a truck.
Oh yeah. I've been there. I've been there with a buyer, and I remember our deliveries have always been what they were traditionally terrible. They are now because of various reasons, but reasons we could control back in the old days. And back in the old days, I'm talking before 2019. DIFOTs of under 95%, you'd be taken out to task. And I remember talking to a buyer going, "Listen, I want to get some more product into Woolworths." He goes, "Hang on a second, champ. Your DIFOT's terrible. You can't deliver what you've got at the moment, and you want more product on shelf. What part of this can't you see?" And then I remember saying to him, "Listen, we got last week's delivery, right?" And he used to go, he's an old guy, goes, "One swallow doesn't make a summer, you know that, don't you?" And I went, "Okay, I get it, So, but yeah, don't forget, these old school buyers, and there was me, a young guy, and we realised that we really need to get our deliveries in full on time. Operations, that's the other thing. Operations in a business like ours, and I guarantee a lot of your members and subscribers, 95% of your problems are operational, right? I think sales and marketing is quite simple and surprisingly easy, but delivery, operations, making the stuff, dealing with staff, that's where 90% of your headaches are. Used to be an old saying in this business that 30% of my business is retail, but it's 100% of my headaches. No longer the case. I think headaches are equally along food service and retail because we've matured now, you know. But retail used to be 100% of your headaches, but now it's not. It's headaches are equal. And I'll be honest with you, headaches get less as you get bigger. So if you want something to look forward to, headaches do disappear in a long. It's actually better to run a business now after 30 years than it was in the early days because you can delegate a bit of stuff and you can make some decisions of things you don't want to do anymore. And it might be a customer you don't want to serve or a product you don't want to sell or someone you don't want to deal with. And there's a nice way of getting out of that as well. And if you want to distance yourself from a customer, then don't do it nastily. Do it in a very nice and civilized way by maybe increasing your price or changing your delivery schedules or something like that, you know. But you don't get anywhere by and I've made a lot of mistakes telling customers, you know, don't tell them what you think, you know. You've really got to close your mouth sometimes and don't shoot off because it can cost you. And people remember all the bad stuff; they don't remember the good stuff. You know, you got to be really careful. Yeah,
always the way. Mimmo, for all those small and medium business owners out there listening to all the inspiring stuff you've said, and they're like, "We're ready. We're ready to, you know, to scale up. You know, however what they're thinking. What are some top tips you can share with them just to go? Okay, I've been through this. This is what I would suggest you do if you want to take that initial step."
I think understand the buyer's, you know, what their frustrations are. Understand your timing as well. You might be, you know, we've launched a lot of products way before their time and got, you know, be patient. I think test is a really big thing. You know, test it in a fruit market, test it in a small retailer, you know, test it on your family, on your friends. And ask for honesty, really. I mean, if I, you know, formulate a product and I reckon it's average, of course my friends are going to tell me it's great, it's lovely, it's perfect. We used to do that at trade shows. I try a position product and was discussing, oh, this is great, keep on doing it, you know. And they go, oh, the guy from Sandhurst reckons, right? Well, that's great because everyone's going to hate it, you know. So I think the honesty is a big thing. I just think you've got to really listen. I think, you know, listening to everybody is really important and really get the signals and the signs and really, it's just something you just got to keep on trying, and maybe it's not going to happen today, but it might happen in a year, 2 years, 5 years. I don't know. It's I mean, I look back at where we've had success in retail. You know, it's been pretty much where we've been persistent, but also knowing that we've got the right formulation that in the end we'll survive this. You know, that's what it's about. But also knowing that there's a market for it, knowing there's a gap, and that knowing there's it's important, you know. So reality check. So we always look at where stuff comes out of food service, like for example, Mexican food comes out of food service or Indian food comes out of food service, and people want to try it at home. There's no point trying to invent something brand new. I invented some great cherries many years ago called Amarena cherries, beautiful. They just went nowhere because there was no foundation for it in food service. They're used in Italy in ice creams, but in Australia we don't have cherry ice creams. In Italy they love cherry ice creams. In Australia we love different ice creams. We love more nut-based and, you know, affogatos and coffee-based things like that. So yeah. So once again, understanding, there was me saying, oh, it's a great product and I love it, so it should work. You know, you can't be too much in love with your product. That's the thing, because you'll just get clouded. It'll drag you down. You know. So
and I love when you say, doesn't matter how much you believe that the recipe come from your nonna, the food loved by all your friends. If you don't test your product and if you don't get a real feedback, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think, you know, Dick Smith said it really well. He said, just keep on asking questions, you know. It's amazing if you ask people for advice, they'll give you advice. And most people will give you good, honest advice. And if people ask me a question, I get people on LinkedIn, they go, I'm starting a business. Can you give me half an hour of your time? Sure, I don't want any money for it. I know of some people that have these websites. Book a 5-minute chat, it'll cost you, you know, $100. What's that all about? I don't get it, you know. Just give something and you get it back some other way. There's you know, it's sort of a karma thing, you know. Just give something for free, and something will happen to you on the way home or whatever it is. You'll get something back. Don't worry about it. You know, it's the law of attraction. You know, just keep on giving, and then people will. It's only advice, they're only words. I'm not going to do the work for you. It's like you've got a great idea. How much are you going to pay for a good idea? Well, mate, the world's full of great ideas. What is it? The world's full of great people with great ideas and no money. You know, because the great ideas, everyone's got one. You know, and most of these ideas never come to fruition anyway, because you need a lot of money to fuel an idea. You know, and you can lose a lot of money on an idea as well, because we've done it, you know. We've lost money on ideas as well. So, and we'll probably continue to do so. Probably try to minimise the loss. That's what we're trying to do, you know. So instead of ordering a container of, left-handed widgets, we only order a pallet or a half a carton, and see how they go. We're actually doing it at the moment. We've got some jalapenos stuffed with cream cheese. There you go. Just landed 50 cartons of them and served them to one of the big caterers, and they might be interested at the moment. So we might be able to get it into one of the big hotel chains. So, but fingers crossed, that only happened just today. So we don't know, or I might be talking to you 6 months time going, weren't they a flop? Jalapenos filled with cheese. God, that was terrible. What were we thinking, So, but anyway, that's the thing. That's the fun part anyway, So.
Thank you, Mimmo. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Gus, because we've actually run out of time. So I'll hand it over to you for your wrap-up.
Thank you. Mimmo, thank you so much for coming to our Leader Talk show. From the get-go, if we want to talk about passion, I have to say that your passion come across this screen. The only thing that I blame you is I think my diet today will fail because I need to eat after this session, just listening to the way you explain your business. So thank you so much. These are the key things that we take from you today. You started by saying successful business relate to selling. And if you want to sell, you need to learn how to sell. Then I love what you say. Learning come from everywhere. Well, if you don't have money going to university, or you don't have place to buy a book, listen to the radio, ask advice.
Podcasts.
Come listen to this podcast. Contact Mimmo somewhere, and you can learn. Then you said success require persistence, and persistence grow when you are passionate towards your purpose, your goal, and your product. And this is, I think, really resonate to a lot of people because in the absence of passion, you can't keep going because the challenges can get too big. Keep your feet on the ground, the Italian sign. Humility is the key to success. Understand where you come from. At one point, Sandhurst was a small business. Now you supplying all over the countries. But that's not mean that you're not supporting your local coffee shop. And all that come across towards your business. Scale up. That's what you say. Don't be shy. Scale up. But understand your foundation. Understand your weakness. Understand your customer KPI, because your customer KPI could be the problem of your business. Be patient. I love this one. Be patient. Your headache will eventually get better when you grow up. Mimmo, I never hear this before. Be patient. After 30 years, you're not required to take any Panadols. You can actually enjoy all the effort. Keep learning and keep growing. That's what you said. Mimmo,
Gus, there's one final quote which I will share to you. The purpose of a business is to give you a life, not to take your life away.
Hey.
I use that every day. The purpose of business is to give you a life, not to take it away. So if your business is taking your life away, go and do something else, because if you're not getting a life out of your business, then trust me, it's a lot of work, and you should be doing something else. So that's a great little saying that I didn't invent it. I don't know. I stole it from somebody. There's nothing original about what I say or what I do, but I'm a great thief of great sayings, things like that. So yeah. And the other one is. The other one is our purpose is to enrich the lives of the people we deal with, which is basically our customers, our staff, and our suppliers. That's our job, is to make their life better. That's our value. That's our mission statement, I suppose. It sounds a bit sort of I don't know, Harvard, but it's actually true. We want to make everyone's life a little bit better. So,
I agree.
What a beautiful way to end it. So Mimmo, just to confirm, it was the purpose of a business is to give you a life, not take it away.
Right.
I love that.
So do I. What a wonderful way to end such a wonderful chat. Thank you so much, Mimmo.
Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiact.com.au. Thanks, everyone. Bye.